Have you ever imagined sitting down to talk about life's most profound questions? For example, if God really exists, is he kind or simply indifferent to what happens to us? Or worse, is he sadistic? And another, where did the universe come from? How did it all begin? These questions have intrigued humanity for thousands of years. What do you think about all this? Does God exist or not? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Since ancient times, people have tried to find answers to these gigantic questions. Some look to science, which explains incredible things about how the universe works. Others seek answers in faith, believing that there is something greater, something divine, behind all of this. But are these two ways of seeing the world, science and faith, in conflict, or can they actually complement each other? Can one help explain the other? At this point, what we are going to do is embark on a journey together. Here, we will explore the best ideas, the strongest arguments, and perhaps even discover a little more about what it means to believe or not believe in God. Get ready, because this conversation promises to be deep, curious, and who knows, maybe even transform the way you see the world. Exploring philosophical and intuitive reflections. Let's start by thinking about something interesting. Science is amazing, isn't it? It helps us understand how things work in the physical world. For example, it explains why the sky is blue, how the heart beats, or how the stars shine. But have you ever noticed that there are things that science cannot fully explain? Like what we feel when we hear moving music, like Beethoven's compositions, or that magical feeling of nostalgia when we visit the place where we grew up. These experiences go beyond what we can measure with numbers or microscopes. They are things that touch our soul, who we are inside. That's where metaphysics comes in, a field of thought that tries to explore what is intangible, that which cannot be grasped or measured. Metaphysics asks questions like, what is love? What does it mean to exist? Why are we here? These are profound questions that cannot be answered by formulas or experiments, but are extremely important for understanding life. Now, let's talk about logic, which is like a tool we use to think clearly. It works like a chain of connected ideas. If one thing is true, it leads us to another truth. For example, consider this line of reasoning: every man dies. Gabriel is a man. Therefore, Gabriel will die. It seems simple, but this is logic in action. It helps organize our thoughts and draw conclusions based on premises. When we combine metaphysics and logic, we begin to understand that there are different ways to explore the big questions of life. Science is a powerful tool, but it doesn't answer everything. For questions like love, beauty, ethics, and intuition, we need to look beyond, combining logical reasoning with a deeper search for the meaning of things. And that's where our conversation gets even more interesting. The cosmological argument. Where does everything come from? Let's think about something curious. Why does something exist instead of nothing? It seems complicated, but this question helps us understand an idea called the cosmological argument, which tries to explain the origin of everything. The premise is the basis of reasoning. Everything that exists needs an explanation. Nothing simply appears from nothing. There is always a reason or cause behind something's existence. If the universe has an explanation, that explanation is God. Here, God is seen as the ultimate cause, something eternal and immaterial, different from everything we know. The universe exists. That's obvious, right? We're here, living in it. With these three ideas, we come to the conclusions. The universe needs an explanation. That explanation is God. A simple example, the clock in the forest. Imagine that you are walking through a forest and suddenly you find a clock on the ground. You will probably think, where did that clock come from? It didn't just appear from nowhere, right? Someone had to create it. Now think about the universe. It is much more complex and impressive than any clock. Just as a clock needs a creator, the universe also needs an explanation for its existence. Responding to criticism, dealing with questions. What about subatomic particles that come out of nowhere? In fact, they don't literally come out of nowhere. They come from a vacuum full of energy and laws of physics. Even in the quantum world, something only exists because there is a basis for it. Why doesn't God need an explanation? Unlike the universe, God is considered necessary, eternal, and immaterial. He doesn't depend on anything to exist, while the universe is contingent. That is, It needs something outside of itself to explain its existence. What does this mean? The cosmological argument invites us to think about the beginning of everything. It doesn't just say that God exists, but that God is the ultimate explanation, the cause that gives meaning to the universe. Just as we wouldn't accept that a clock just appeared in the woods, it makes sense to look for a greater cause, for something as grand as the universe. This reasoning helps us see that, behind everything, there may be a creator who brought everything into existence. Evidence that the universe had a beginning. Now let's imagine something fascinating. The universe, with all its galaxies, stars, and planets, is not eternal. It had a beginning, but how can we be sure of this? There are clues in both philosophy and science that point to this conclusion. Philosophical evidence. Time is not infinite. Think of time as a long line of events, like a giant line of dominoes. Each domino falls and pushes the next one. Now imagine if there were an infinite number of dominoes before the last one. If this were true, the last domino would never fall, because you would never finish passing all the previous dominoes. This means that time cannot be infinite, because the present, the now, simply would not arrive. In order for us to be here today, time had to have a beginning. Scientific evidence. Science also agrees. Science gives us two important clues that confirm that the universe had a beginning. The Big Bang. Have you heard of the Big Bang? It is the moment when the universe began to exist. Scientists have discovered that billions of years ago, everything was concentrated in a tiny and extremely dense point called a singularity. Suddenly, this point exploded and the universe began to expand, forming everything we know today. The laws of thermodynamics. Thermodynamics is like a rule of the universe that says everything loses energy over time. If the universe were eternal, it would have already used up all its energy and would be in a state called heat death. No heat, no movement, no life. But since that didn't happen, we know that it is not eternal and had a starting point. With these clues, both philosophical and scientific, it is clear that the universe did not always exist. It had a beginning, and everything that has a beginning needs a cause. That cause must be something or someone outside the universe, because the universe could not cause itself. This leads us to an even bigger question. What is that cause? Some call this cause God. Others are still trying to find out more about it. But what we do know is that behind everything we see, there is something that started it all. Fascinating, isn't it? Who or what caused the universe? Now that we understand that the universe had a beginning and needs a cause, let's ask ourselves, what kind of thing could create something as incredible and gigantic as the universe? Well, the answer leads us to some very fascinating characteristics of this cause. Let's explore this together. Immaterial and timeless. Outside of time and space, everything in the universe is made of matter and is bound by time. For example, you are made of cells, planets are made of rocks, and everything happens within time, like minutes, hours, and years. But the cause of the universe cannot be like the things it created. It needs to be immaterial, that is, something that is not made of matter, and timeless, because time only began with the universe. It is like an author writing a book. He is not inside the story. He is outside of it, creating everything. Almighty, capable of creating everything. Imagine creating something as big as the universe, with billions of galaxies, stars, planets, and even the laws that govern all, like gravity. To do something like that cause needs to be all-powerful, with unlimited strength and ability to bring everything into existence from nothing. Personal, not just a force. Now here comes a very interesting part. The cause of the universe is not like an automatic machine or an impersonal force, like gravity. It needs to be personal, because it made the decision to create. To decide something, you need to have will, thought, and intention. It's like an artist who decides to start a painting. It doesn't happen by chance. It's a choice. Supreme in intelligence and goodness. Look around you. Everything in the universe is incredibly complex and organized, from the galaxies to the workings of your own body. This shows that the cause of the universe must be extremely intelligent, capable of planning something so detailed and perfect. Furthermore, it also demonstrates goodness, because the universe allows life, beauty, and incredible experiences, such as love and joy. This does not seem to be the work of something chaotic, but of something good. What is this cause like? With all these characteristics, immaterial, timeless, all-powerful, personal, intelligent, and kind, it's hard not to think of something much greater than ourselves. For many, this sounds exactly like what we call God, a being who is beyond anything we can imagine, but who also decided to create something as wonderful as the universe and include us in it. Thinking about the cause of the universe is like trying to understand the artist behind a masterpiece. Every detail makes us admire even more what was created and who created it. Fascinating, don't you think? God isn't just an easy answer. Sometimes when we talk about God as the cause of the universe, some people say, "Oh, you're just putting God as the answer because you can't explain everything." But is that really true? Let's think together. What is the God of the gaps fallacy? This idea, called God of the gaps, happens when someone uses God to explain something that we don't yet understand. For example, in the past, people said that thunder was caused by angry gods because they didn't know the science behind the phenomenon. Science has advanced, and we now know that thunder has to do with electricity and clouds. So using God to fill in gaps in our knowledge may seem like a lazy answer. Why isn't that the case here? The arguments we're discussing don't just bring God in to fill in the gaps of things we don't understand. Instead, we use logic, philosophy, and science to reach rational conclusions. Let's recap. Logic and philosophy. Arguments like cosmology and the causal characteristics of the universe don't depend on not knowing. They're based on sound reasoning. For example, we know that everything that begins to exist needs a cause. This is a logical truth, not a gap in knowledge. Scientific evidence. Science shows that the universe had a beginning with the Big Bang, for example. This leads us to ask, what caused it? The answer must be something outside of time, space, and matter. And there's nothing in science that contradicts the possibility of God being that cause. God as a complete explanation. The difference here is that we are not saying we don't know, so it must be God. We are saying we know a lot about the universe, and these things point to a cause greater than itself. That cause must have characteristics that only something like God can have, being eternal, all-powerful, intelligent, and personal. It's not a simple answer, it's a logical conclusion. Thinking of God as the cause of the universe is not about evading the question. It's about going deeper. It's about using all the tools we have, logic, science, and philosophy, to better understand what's behind everything that exists. We're not just filling in the gaps. We're building a path to understanding the origin of everything in a rational and meaningful way. So the next time someone talks about God of the gaps, remember, what we're exploring here is not an excuse, but an honest, logical search for answers. After all, thinking of God as the cause of the universe is not limiting the explanation, but expanding it. Part 6. Who is the Creator? Let's find out. Now that we've thought about the cause of the universe, you may be wondering, okay, but who is this God? After all, many people throughout history have believed in different gods. So how can we identify who is the true creator of everything? Let's explore this together. Why is Jesus important? His historical impact. Jesus completely changed the history of humanity. Think about it. Today, we count the years based on his birth. Before Jesus, people lived one way, but after his message, concepts such as love for others, forgiveness, and human dignity gained strength. His teachings. Jesus did not just talk about God, he demonstrated God's character. He taught that God is loving, just, and desires a close relationship with each person. More than that, he demonstrated God's love by helping the poor, healing the sick, and offering hope to those who felt lost. His death and resurrection. The most significant moment in Jesus' life was when he died on the cross, and 3 days later, he was resurrected. For Christians, this proves that he was not just an ordinary man, but truly the Son of God, capable of overcoming even death. What does Jesus show us about God? If we look at the life and teachings of Jesus, we see a clear picture of what God is like. He is loving, personal, and deeply interested in every detail of our lives. Furthermore, Jesus said that He's the only way to truly know the Creator. Thinking of Jesus as the revelation of God is an invitation to go beyond philosophical questions. It is a call to know the one who said, "He who has seen me has seen the Father." This means that by understanding who Jesus is, we can understand who the Creator of the universe is. So, why not explore more about this incredible figure? Discovering Jesus is like opening a window into the heart of God, and it is a journey worth taking.